you're also a large mental health advocate, especially for those with disabilities. Do you think that there is a relationship between mental health and disability and that there are additional impacts on those with mental illness and disability?
Yes, there is. Unfortunately, what I am seeing a lot and it's becoming more and more clear to me, especially in organizations for the low vision and blind community, we deal with the disability itself, but never the mental health side of things, which saddens me. But at the same time, we continue to do the work as much as, I can to bring the awareness and educate people when it comes to mental health and creating more shared spaces for people to come out and share and speak and provide resources for those individuals. Because a lot of times, we focus so much on the disability and how, you can adapt all of these things when it comes to your life, but no one really checks in on, the emotional side of things, how it affects you, how is you losing your vision, whether it be later on in life or growing up as a child, how it's affecting you emotionally, what struggles are you having emotionally, internally.
Absolutely. And especially I think like in terms of like all three of us, like something like vision loss, like nobody talks about how like isolating that can be, and like the fact that it is actually a loss of something and something that you can be grieving. And I think those emotions are huge, and I know they're starting to be talked about more, which is great. More kind of supports are being put together around that,
especially when you meet other people in the low vision and blind community. They have like the same type of eye condition from you feel so like, I don't know, rejuvenated or like energetic. Like, oh my God, this person knows what I'm going through.
That's exactly,
and not everybody has that experience, right? Unfortunately.
That's exactly literally one of the reasons that we created True Faces, is like we need to create a community of people who know what we're going through, and that's absolutely it. And something that's so important in our community to have those other people as support. We've kind of talked about it in other videos, but visual anxiety is a real thing. Getting anxious over things that you can't see. I know for me, it's a huge thing.
We'll be putting out a video on just navigating social settings as a person who is blind, and how I had to learn to adapt and come up with ways to help with my anxiety and my social fears, on how to navigate different types of social settings. And sometimes you, even though you prepare yourself, it doesn't always happen what you expect. So how are you going to adapt in that situation, in that environment?
I love that it's being talked about more. What are some of the ways that we can combat mental health and disability, or are there different supports and organizations that are, I guess, we like doing things about it?
I know CNIB is running now, and Canadian Council for the Blind are running a lot of younger adult or younger groups, and primarily they are individualized in terms of like, or segregate when it comes to men and women. So there is that shared space for like girls that want to talk about girly things, or just want some tips on dating, or if they're going on a first date and things like that. I've also noticed it's very hard to find someone that can understand your disability and the other aspects, or like the social or the visual anxiety you are facing. I was very fortunate enough in my case, because I go to the hospital for sick children till this day. I was put in touch with a social worker there. So I think if anybody that has an ophthalmologist or wherever, I'm pretty sure on their team, they have a social worker that works on their team. Don't be scared. It's okay to reach out and have someone that can empathize with you, that can understand you, and that could give you even more better resources in your own community.
I also think it's incredibly important to have like techniques that work for yourself. So like I know for myself, I have a bunch of different breathing techniques and meditations that I can do either before a stressful situation or after a stressful situation, or even when I'm in a stressful situation, like just having some way like to learn and gain these techniques that work for yourself along the way are incredibly important as well.
Like grounding is like really important, and if you know ahead of time what is going to be making you anxious, kind of thinking about it kind of talking about it, whether it's a friend or, doing, like you said, like meditation or breathing exercises, or just visualizing in your head what it's gonna look like, can also kind of bring that anxiety down. Like, for example, like I'm kind of scared to like sit in long car rides right now because of my accident. So I kind of like, for me, what I do is like, okay, you're gonna be going in a car today. It's gonna be this on what are the things I can do to make this car ride at this point just bearable and just make it through. So am I gonna be on the phone with somebody, or my parents just gonna talk to me nonstop so they keep me distracted so I don't, think about the other emotions or things that's currently happening. When you're put into certain situations, you have to be able to go with the flow. And so you have to find out what works for you and what coping mechanisms work for you. Some people love journaling, right? So maybe on the go, audio, writing, whatever, like they will just write it all down. I follow Katie Morton. She's a YouTuber. She is a therapist. And I would suggest, like, if anyone just wants to or curious, like, just search her name into YouTube. You'll find so many great resources and about anything and everything.
And also just like understanding that like whatever feelings you have, like being scared to sit in a car for a long time, like that those feelings are valid. Like it's totally okay to feel that way. You just briefly mentioned visualization, and this is something that somebody actually just recently introduced me to. And I'm just curious, have you tried visualization, or is that something that like you do a lot?
I don't do it often. It personally hasn't worked for me, but it has worked for a lot of my clients and a lot of people that I have worked with. So I know it's sometimes hard, especially someone who is blind or low vision, to visualize in your head. So I would give an example of, think of a square in your head and think of it, okay, where's the top of the square? Okay, and then slowly make your way down to the bottom of the next corner, in a straight line, and then go across. So visual in your head the shape of the square, or it could be a circle. That's just a very simple way. Or a lot of times people just visualize like a very nice relaxing spot for them. It could be the beach or trees or nature, but it's really, you really have to, and it can be frustrating because it can't always happen, and that's okay. Or another way of doing it, because we as low vision and blind individuals, we use touch a lot. So have something in your hand that you can touch and focus on that. Focus on the texture, focus on how it feels. If you can smell it, focus on the smell, how big it is, how round it is, how wide it is. I actually used to do that. I used to have a slinky, and sometimes I think it was like, sometimes people have silly putties, but having something in my hand made me focus on the object that's in my hand when I've been in very, very anxious situations, or just, when you have an interview, you're anxious. So there's something you can have in your hand and nobody even needs to know what you're doing.
Originally, somebody brought up the idea of visualization to me, and I was like, I'm visually impaired. Like how's that going to work? I don't form defined images in my head, and definitely working with them to incorporate the smells, the feels, the different tastes of like an experience, and just tapping into kind of all your senses was something really cool. And it's not something that I do all the time, because again, like you said, sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's a habit, and it's something that you have to practice. And so when you are in that situation, or feeling a certain way, you can, it's your go-to. It's like using the things from, like, all the counselors says, your toolbox, right? So you have all these tools. Which tool are you going to be using? But you need to practice doing it. So when you actually are feeling really anxious or really stressed, or whatever it might be, that you can automatically sort of just grab it and do what you need to do.
Do you have any advice that you would give to anybody who's maybe in a rough spot or is in like a bad situation? Any just advice that you would give?
Be strong. There are days, I will say personally, in the last 4 months, there are days where I have felt very, very low. But if you have a good support system around you, reach out to them, connect with them, ask them to step in, whether it be for them to check in on you on a daily basis or you calling them, but it will pass. There's always a test. I look at it in life, and we can never get too comfortable with our lives because then it will be boring. So there's always have to be one challenge or another. So when you're finished with one challenge, you move on to the next one, and not all of them are going to be the same. But you can get through it. There are days when you're going to feel really crappy, but remember that, you know what, like you can feel that way for the day or for the hour or for the moment, and the next morning or next day you can wake up and it's going to be a new day, so you can make new choices, better choices. And there are so many places where now there is help and resources available if that's what you need.
I like what you said about we can't get too comfortable with our lives, and I like the quote, growth doesn't happen inside the comfort zone. And I think it's absolutely true. We gotta be strong, step out of our comfort zones, be positive along the way, all of those things, and have that kind of support system in order to just get through life, honestly. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, Sarah. I can hear the passion in your voice about these topics, and it was so nice to hear somebody else's perspective on these topics and just have this great conversation. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It was lovely talking to you guys and sharing with you.